I didn't expect betrayal to sound like laughter, but there it was. My own son's voice cutting through my laptop speakers, echoing across my oil-stained garage in Austin. It was late October, a Wednesday night, and I had just finished tightening the bolts on a customer's '98 Ford. My hands were still greasy, my overalls heavy with sweat and gasoline, when Tyler's live stream popped up on my phone. 800,000 people were watching him. Tidy Liv, the influencer, the rapper, the man my boy believed he had built all by himself. And then he rapped my line. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell us where you're listening from. The chorus I had written back in March of 2017, leaning against the chip counter of my kitchen, humming to the rhythm of a leaky faucet. He spat it out with all his practiced swagger. Let the bass rumble so loud I could hear it distort through my phone's tiny speaker, and then sneered into the camera. My dad? He changes oil, not music. The chat erupted. Clown emojis, strings of LOL, comments flying faster than I could read them. The screen glowed bright and chaotic. Each line of text a dagger. They weren't just laughing at him. They were laughing at me. At Benjamin Cole, the man who had given his life to words and melodies before the industry turned its back in 2002. Tyler leaned back in his designer chair, lights flashing purple and blue across his face, basking in the cruelty of it all. And me? I sat there in the dim garage, the only light coming from a buzzing fluorescent bulb, its flicker stuttering across the unpaid bills on my workbench. The envelope sat right in the middle, mocking me, a $2,800 mastering bill stacked on top of the foreclosure notice. $38,500 balloon payment due January 10th. Numbers that carried more weight than any applause or ridicule. Numbers that told me survival wasn't just about swallowing pride. It was about clawing back what was mine. My chest tightened. For years I had swallowed my pride, let Tyler run wild with the words I once sang to him as lullabies. I told myself silence was love, that letting him shine was better than reminding the world who first lit the spark. But in that moment, watching him mock me, silence felt like a noose tightening around my neck. I typed into the chat with trembling hands. That lyric is mine. Check ASCAP. For a split second, nothing happened. The scrolling slowed. A few users paused, repeating my message with question marks. Then Tyler's jaw twitched. He glanced at the screen, smirked, and clicked something off camera. Banned. Just like that, my own son shut me out in front of the world. I stared at the blinking, "You've been blocked," notice while the laughter carried on without me. The garage suddenly felt smaller, the buzzing overhead louder, the bass from Tyler's stream still echoing faintly, as if mocking me even after I was gone. Because what I'm about to confess is not just a story of betrayal, it's a ledger of silence, debt, and the kind of revenge no man plans until his back is pressed flat against the wall. That night, I shut the garage door, slid into the old recliner I used as a bed, and replayed his words in my head. My dad changes oil, not music. He was right about the oil, but as for the music, the receipts never lie, and neither would I. The couch in my garage was older than Tyler. A faded, lumpy recliner I dragged in from a yard sale back in 2004, the year my marriage cracked for good. I used to joke that it was the only piece of furniture that knew all my secrets. Now it was the only place I could sleep. That night, after the live stream humiliation, I lay there wide awake, staring at the corrugated metal ceiling, listening to the relentless buzz of the dying fluorescent bulb. Each flicker of light cut through the dark like a pulse, reminding me that the world outside was moving while I stayed stuck in this cage of oil stains and regrets. On my chest sat a folder Lena had given me years ago, her neat handwriting labeling it royalties and taxes. I'd ignored it for too long, telling myself numbers were her world, not mine. But now, with every humiliation replaying in my mind, I forced myself to flip it open. The spreadsheets inside smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, as if Lena had tried to scrub away the bitterness. Rows of numbers told a story louder than any song. Royalties missing, checks that never arrived, columns left empty where money should have been. One number made me sit up. $14,800. That was 2022's total, according to ASCAP. But my bank statements, those ragged printouts I shoved into a shoebox, showed nothing close. Someone had pocketed the difference. I pressed my hand against my forehead. How many years did I let slide? I whispered into the silence. The bulb hummed back at me like it was mocking the question. I found an email I had printed, dated May 12th, 2018. My own words staring back. Tyler, I know this industry chews people up. Let me guide you through contracts. I don't want you to make my mistakes. No reply. Not even a thanks, Dad. Just silence. That silence burned hotter now, knowing it had been intentional. Not oversight, not immaturity, erasure. The next morning, driving past the taqueria on East 7th, the one where I signed my ASCAP forms back in March 2017, the sting of wasted years hit me like a fresh bruise. I remembered the waitress sliding a basket of chips my way as I scribbled my name onto that registration. Back then, I believed names meant protection. Turns out they only matter if someone respects them. By the time I pulled back into the garage, Lena was already waiting. She didn't knock. She never did. She just walked in, her coat smelling of rain, her hair tied up in that messy knot she always wore when she was about to deliver hard truths. She dropped a manila envelope on my workbench. Ben, you can keep letting them erase you. Inside was a 2017 tax return, stamped and official. It showed $27,600 in music-related income. The same year Tyler had started uploading his first freestyles to SoundCloud. My earnings had dwindled since, but the proof was there. I wasn't just some garage mechanic chasing ghosts. I had built something real. I shook my head, throat tight. What if I ruin him? Lena Sepp's eyes narrowed. He ruined you first. I wanted to argue, to defend Tyler like I always did, but the words stuck. Instead, I broke down, my shoulders shaking as if 20 years of silence finally split open. Lena didn't flinch. She just slid a small locker key across the table, its brass edges worn smooth from years in her drawer. You said you're not starting from scratch, Ben. You still have what matters. It took me a moment to realize what she meant. The storage unit, 17. The place I had shoved boxes of notebooks, tapes, and demos when the garage became too crowded. I turned the key over in my hand. My palms were sweaty, but for the first time in years I felt something stir in me. Not anger, not grief. Something harder. Resolve. Silence, I realized, has always had a cost, and I'd been the one paying the bill. The key burned a hole in my pocket for 3 straight days. Every time I felt its jagged edge against my thigh, I asked myself if I had the courage to turn it in the lock. It was Saturday morning when I finally drove out to the storage facility on the edge of East Austin, the kind of place where broken dreams sat stacked in cardboard boxes gathering dust. The air was crisp, November biting at my fingers as I signed my name on the log sheet. Unit C-17. I hadn't stepped foot inside since 2018. The overhead light flickered to life, revealing towers of plastic bins, a busted guitar amp, and the smell of mildew clinging to everything. I dug past the clutter until I found a beat-up box marked Saguaro 01. Inside lay the spiral notebook dated March 12th, 2017, the one with the leaky faucet stains smudging the ink. Page after page held lyrics, scratched and rewritten, but the chorus Tyler made famous. It was there in my handwriting, the words underlined twice. Beneath it, I found a burned CD in a paper sleeve labeled Kitchen Tap Demo. I remembered that night, my voice rough, the faucet dripping in rhythm, the hiss of the cheap mic in my apartment. I pressed play on the dusty boombox in the corner, and there it was, my voice, my words, my melody, imperfect but undeniable. I carried the notebook and CD straight to Marco's studio. Marco had been my friend since the late 90s, back when we both thought we'd take over the music scene. Now his studio smelled of coffee and burnt cables, walls lined with gold records he'd earned producing for others. He slid the CD into his system, pressed play, and leaned back. When the hook came in, his eyebrows lifted. Ben, this is the same track, same damn chorus. Tyler Sipp's been milking for years. I nodded, throat tight. Marco didn't hesitate. He pulled out a legal pad and scribbled an affidavit right there, signing it with a steady hand. "I'll stand by you," he said. But before relief could sink in, my phone buzzed. A text from Evan Hart, Tyler's manager. "Help him, and you'll never work with my clients again." Marco read it over my shoulder and chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "I said been blacklisted before. I sep survive." That loyalty hit me harder than the threat. The next witness came unexpectedly. Mrs. Diaz, my 60-year-old neighbor, flagged me down while I was unloading groceries later that evening. Her voice cracked with excitement. "I'll never forget that night in spring 2017 when Tyler broke his wrist skateboarding. I couldn't sleep because I kept hearing you humming through the wall, that same chorus, over and over." Her words were a hammer driving the nail deeper. Proof wasn't just paper, it was memory, sound, time itself. By Monday, I was sitting across from Miss Walsh, the lawyer Lena had recommended. Her office smelled of leather and lemon polish, every corner neat and sharp like her reputation. She laid out the evidence. ASCAP registration, tax returns, Marco's affidavit, Mrs. Diaz's testimony, the demo disc, and outlined her plan like a surgeon preparing for an operation. "Benjamin," she said, sliding her glasses down her nose, "proof cuts both ways. It can save you, or it can destroy him. Are you prepared for both?" I stared at the stack of papers, the notebook, the CD glinting under the desk lamp. For the first time, I realized fear and relief could feel exactly the same. I took a deep breath. Yes, I something erased. And in that moment, I wasn't just a mechanic anymore. I was a man with evidence. On Monday at 9:12 a.m., Miss Walsh clicked send and turned the key in an engine I'd been too afraid to start. Her office window looked out over Congress Avenue, the leaves in early November just starting to brown at the edges. On her desk sat 4 FedEx envelopes already labeled and weighed, and a 5th stack of certified letters waiting for the clerk. Each packet was a fuse. ASCAP registration printout with my name highlighted, Marco's signed affidavit, Mrs. Diaz's statement fixing the week in spring 2017, when Tyler's wrist was in a cast, Lena's 2017 tax return showing my music income, and a copy of the $2,800 mastering invoice with a yellow sticky tab on the due date. I watched the progress bars crawl across her screen as she emailed PDFs to the brands on Tyler's sponsor page, one entertainment streamer, one energy drink, a sneaker company, and the merch platform that shipped his hoodies. Subject line: Notice of potential credit misattribution and morality clause implications. "Delivery receipts in 3, 2, 1, she murmured, eyes narrowing. "Good. Now we wait." I didn't like the word wait. Waiting was how I lost 20 years. By noon, the first reply landed. The Merch Platforms Council wanted to acknowledge receipt and temporarily pause fourth quarter promotional spends pending review of the alleged authorship discrepancy. An hour later, the Energy Drinks Agency wrote they were invoking a morals clause review and freezing holiday placements until provenance is clarified. The streamer asked for a call to understand the chain of title. The sneaker brand sent a curt, noted, "Please send any additional corroboration, especially dated audio." Miss Walsh leaned back in her chair, that small victory smile barely there. "They don't need us to win. They just need to not lose. Holidays are expensive. Controversy is more expensive." I called Lena from the elevator. They said freezing his ads. She exhaled like she sit been holding the breath for years. "Ben, listen to me. Don't sit gloat. Document." So I went home and documented. I lined my kitchen table with the things that had once felt like scraps, and suddenly looked like a map. The spiral notebook opened to March 12, 2017. The kitchen tap demo CD in its paper sleeve. The $2,800 mastering invoice. The mortgage notice screaming $38. 500 balloon due January 10th. And my old plastic ASCAP card, edges scuffed. My name Benjamin Cole soft from years in my wallet. At 4:43 p.m. I set my phone on a stack of paperbacks, hit record, and told the truth into the cheap mic I'd used for voice memos at the garage. I didn't try to be a YouTuber. I didn't add music or cuts. Just me, the soft tick of the kitchen clock, and the slow breath I took before the first line. My name is Benjamin Cole. If you heard a certain chorus the last few years, you heard my kitchen sink. I held each piece up like I was swearing in with my hands. When I got to the mortgage notice, I didn't dramatize it. I read the numbers, 38,500 due January 10th. I let the silence sit after that line. The way silence sits after a judge strikes a gavel. I ended it clean. I don't want anyone canceled. I want my name back. The proof is here. You can check ASCAP. I uploaded it at 5:11 p.m. to a channel I hadn't touched since I posted an oil change tutorial in 2016. I titled it Kitchen Tap, March 12, 2017. A father's credit, and put my email in the description for any reporter who wasn't afraid of the smell of WD-40. By midnight, it had 34,000 views. I know that's not viral in Tyler's world, but in mine, those were 34,000 people who saw my name on the same screen that once erased me. The next morning, Evan called. He didn't say hello. Youssef made a serious legal mistake, Benjamin. Defamation, tortious interference. Those sponsors are freezing because of you. I didn't have to raise my voice. They sipped her freezing because they saw proof. You have nothing that matters in court, he snapped. A notebook, a neighbor, an outdated ASCAP card. Cute. Meanwhile, my client has contracts. Contracts down change authors. Here seps what that's gonna happen, he said, the smile audible. You seps delete that video. You seps still issue a correction that your dismemories seps are not evidence, and we will consider not bankrupting you with legal fees. I let the silence work for me. I had learned silence could be a weapon when it wasn't used to hide. When he realized I wasn't instead going to fill it, he changed tactics. Think about Tyler Sipp's future. You want your son destroyed over your ego? I felt my jaw tighten. I don't want him destroyed. I want him honest. He hung up. 10 minutes later, an email from Miss Walsh pinged my phone. Subject, good start. Now lock it down. The body, change the garage locks. Install a camera. Backup media to 2 drives. One at Lena's, one with me. Do not keep your only copies under your own roof. I spent the rest of the day at Home Depot. The irony not lost on me, fixing the house so I could fix my name. I bought 2 deadbolts, a cheap Wi-Fi camera, and an external hard drive big enough to swallow a decade of demos. By nightfall, the new locks clicked with a confident thunk. The little camera blinked a calm blue eye at my workbench, where the notebook and CD sat under a glass cake dome. Lena insisted on as a joke. If the industry can display awards, you can display proof, she'd said, sliding it onto the counter like we were crowning a dessert. I backed up everything. Photos of the notebook pages, high-res scans of the margins where the faucet stains spread like a thumbprint, audio rips of the demo, the affidavit PDF. I labeled the drive tapproof_01 with a strip of masking tape and drove it to Lena's, then made a second copy labeled tapproof_02 for Miss Walsh. As I walked the second drive into her lobby, I passed a man pacing with a file folder stamped Heart Media in red. He avoided my eye. Fear has a posture. That week, the sponsors kept writing. The streamer's legal team asked for a chain of custody timeline. The energy drink attached a redacted copy of their morality clause. Any act tending to bring public disrepute that may reflect unfavorably on brand. The sneaker brand wanted audio comparison by an independent musicologist. Walsh replied to each one brisk and surgical, links, dates, witness names, registrations, and one clean sentence that read like a scalpel. Our client seeks correction of credit and remuneration of unpaid royalties. No more, no less. Evan fired off 2 more threats to my inbox that week. The second one came with a PDF titled Draft Complaint. Miss Walsh read it and shrugged. Bluff, if he files, discovery is public and his November 3rd email becomes evidence. She tapped a printout I hadn't seen before. Evan's words in black and white, if we claim ownership outright, we keep the narrative clean. The old man won't fight, dated November 3rd, 11:17 p.m. And I thought about how many nights I had lain on that garage couch telling myself I was keeping the peace. Turns out I was keeping a door unlocked for thieves. On Friday, a junior reporter from the Austin Ledger called. I watched your video, she said. Do you mind if I come by to see the notebook and hear the demo in person? Off the record first. I cleaned the garage like I was preparing a nursery. I set two folding chairs near the workbench, moved the oil pans to the far wall, and brewed a pot of coffee so strong it could stand its own wrench upright. She listened to the demo with her eyes closed, then asked me to hum the hook in the room. When I finished, she said one word so softly I almost missed it: undeniable. As she packed up, she asked, "What are you going to do next?" I looked at the calendar pinned above my socket set, the empty square on December 5th catching the light. Something public, I said. Something with chairs and cameras and a table where the papers can lie flat. If they want the narrative, they can have it just true. That night, I set the camera in my kitchen again and recorded a second video. Shorter this time, I held up the little brass key to the storage unit and the spiral notebook. I've been anonymous for a long time, I said. I'm done whispering in my own house. Next week, I'll announce a room and a date. The door will be open. I ended the recording and turned off the kitchen light. The house settled with that old wooden sigh I used to love. I slid the deadbolt, checked the blue eye on the garage camera, and laid the ASCAP card on the nightstand like a saint's medal. The letters had started the fire. Now I just had to walk through it without burning the wrong person. December 5th was circled in red on my garage calendar, the same square I used to mark oil change appointments and delivery schedules. Now it was the date I would stand in front of cameras, strangers, and my son's shadow. The venue was the East Austin Library, Conference Room B. 40 chairs, gray carpet that smelled faintly of dust and coffee, fluorescent lights buzzing like the ones in my garage. Miss Walsh insisted on this space. Public, neutral, easy for press, impossible to spin as a backroom ambush. I announced it 1 week prior with a trembling hand holding my phone. December 5th, East Austin Library. I sent show my proof live. Seats open. Cameras welcome. Tyler's response came 12 hours later, a stream titled Self-Made. He leaned against a neon sign in his studio, arms crossed, smirk dripping with contempt. My dad thinks waving receipts is gonna change facts. I built this, no ghost in my story. Behind him, the neon letters pulsed self-made in electric blue. His chat lit up with fire emojis. I didn't reply, not to him. Instead, I sat with Lena at her kitchen table, while she unfolded a spreadsheet she'd built from her old bank software. Line by line, she had traced unpaid royalties from sinks and streams, $96,300 missing across 4 years. She tapped the total with her pen. Ben, this isn't just pride. This is theft. Marco was next. He invited 2 journalists he trusted into his studio. They listened as he played the kitchen tap demo through his monitors. When the chorus hit, one of them glanced at the other, eyebrows raised. That's the same hook, one whispered. Marco leaned forward, voice steady. Dated March 12th, 2017. Recorded in this city. Benjamin Cole's voice. I'll testify under oath. Of course, Evans struck back. His email to me was laced with venom. You think a library circus will scare us? Sponsors don't care about has-been sob stories. Delete everything or we make this ugly. But one sponsor had already moved. A sneaker rep leaked to a friend of Marco's Q4 ads featuring Tyler were quietly pulled. They wouldn't confirm it on record yet, but silence can be loud when money is on the line. The night before the library date, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the garage with the spiral notebook in my lap, tracing the ink where water from the faucet had blurred the edge of a lyric. My phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m. It was Tyler. A single text. No words, just the clown emoji. I stared at it for minutes, my hand shaking. Doubt slipped in like a draft under the door. What if this ruins him? What if I'm not just reclaiming my name, but burying my son? Lena Setz's voice echoed from earlier that week. He ruined himself the day he erased you. I set the phone down, locked the notebook in its case, and whispered to the empty garage. This isn't cess about destruction. It's cess about correction. When the sun rose, I shaved, buttoned a clean shirt, and tucked the ASCAP card into my wallet, like a soldier pinning a medal. At 10 a.m., I walked into the library, reporters already setting up tripods, notebooks flipping open, microphones angled like bayonets. Marco was there, Lena at my side, Mrs. Diaz holding a folder of her statement. Walsh adjusted her blazer, calm as if she were ordering lunch instead of orchestrating a reckoning. I placed the notebook, CD, affidavit, tax return, and mortgage notice on the table in front of me. They weren't just papers. They were years of silence pressed flat into proof. The countdown was over. The truth had a date, and I had kept it. November 22nd, 12 days before the library showdown. Tyler thought he could beat me to the punch. He announced a truth broadcast on all his socials, promising to set the record straight once and for all. By 8 p.m., nearly 1 million viewers had tuned in. His face filled the screen, perfect lighting, gold chain catching every reflection, arrogance dripping from his grin. People saying my dad wrote my songs? He laughed, leaning forward so close the lens blurred. Man, my dad changes oil. He don't set change lives, that seps all me. He flipped a screenshot onto the stream. A $500 wire transfer from 2019 with my name in the corner. He tapped it like a magician, proving his trick. This is all my dad ever earned from music. I gave him that. You and Spell can stop pretending now. The chat exploded, clown emojis, fire icons, some calling me a leech. I sat in the dark garage, phone propped against a socket set, the spiral notebook locked in its case on the workbench beside me. My knuckles were white from clenching the armrest. Tyler leaned back, cocky. He sips just bitter. That sips what happens when you sips are 50 and forgotten. You sips are old don't sips need ghosts in your feed. I could have shut the stream off. I could have let his words stack higher until they drowned me. But something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. At 8:47 p.m., when he started performing the chorus from my kitchen tap, I opened my phone, signed in with my backup account, and typed, "Play the kitchen tap, March 12th, 2017. For a second, it looked like just another comment lost in the flood. Then I dropped the clip, 6 seconds of audio, faucet dripping in rhythm, my voice humming the hook, raw and unpolished but unmistakably mine. The chat detonated. Messages flooded so fast the screen became a blur. That's the same line. Receipt? Kitchen sink demo? Someone looped the clip and replayed it in chat. Emojis stacked like fireworks, explosions, faucets, music notes, clown faces, the works. Tyler froze for a fraction of a second, the confident smirk cracking like cheap paint. He forced a laugh, voice an octave higher than usual. Okay, so what? He hummed something once. I built it. But his voice shook mid-sentence. His hand fiddled with the chain around his neck, eyes darting off camera. For the first time, millions saw not swagger, but sweat. I didn't tape again. I didn't take need to. The proof was already louder than his denial. By 9:05 p.m., #kitchen tap trended on Twitter. Clips of my 6-second demo spread like wildfire, bloggers comparing waveforms, fans stitching it onto Tyler's music videos, audio engineers slowing it down to show the rhythm matched perfectly. Marco texted me a screenshot from one producer's post, side-by-side audio files, the faucet drip lining up with Tyler's beat. Caption, "Ghosts don't lie." Tyler tried to recover, pivoting into insults. My dad Sep's just desperate. He wants clout off me. You Seps all know I Sep self-made. But the comments drowned him. Play the demo again. Why did you ban him if he Sep's lying? Where Sep's the paperwork? For once, his voice wasn't the loudest in the room. At 9:32 p.m., he ended the stream abruptly, muttering something about technical issues. But the internet doesn't end when you press stop. The faucet clip had already become a meme, remixed into beats, slapped over TikToks of people washing dishes, even edited into parodies of Tyler's own performances. I sat there in the garage, phone buzzing with notifications, my face lit only by the glow of the screen. My hands shook, but not from fear, from something else. Pride. For the first time, I saw the armor of his bravado bend. I whispered into the empty garage, "You can drown out the sound of proof." The stream meant to bury me had backfired, and the cracks in Tyler's kingdom were now visible to the world. December 5th, East Austin Library, Conference Room B. The air smelled of burnt coffee and paper dust, the kind of scent that clings to public buildings where silence is always heavier than sound. 40 chairs lined up in neat rows, most already filled with reporters, bloggers, and a handful of curious locals who'd seen my kitchen video and wanted to know if the ghostwriter dad really existed. My palms sweated against the worn leather handle of the case I carried, the spiral notebook, Marco's affidavit, Lena's tax return, the ASCAP card, the $2,800 mastering invoice, and the $14,800 royalty discrepancy printouts. Proof layered on proof, like bricks ready to build a wall I could finally stand on. At 10:04 a.m., Miss Walsh tapped her pen against the table, sharp and steady. We begin now. Cameras clicked, red recording lights glowed. I opened the case and laid everything out on the table, piece by piece. This, I said, holding up the notebook to the nearest camera, is March 12th, 2017. Written in my kitchen. That faucet drip became the rhythm of the chorus my son built his career on. Pages rustled, flashes popped. I placed the demo CD beside it. This is the kitchen tap demo. Recorded that same night, my voice, raw and unpolished. You can hear the faucet if you listen closely enough. Marco stepped forward, his voice carrying across the room. I produced Tyler Sipp's later sessions. I compared this demo to his release. They match melody, cadence, structure. This affidavit confirms it, signed under oath. He held up the document. Pens scratched furiously in notebooks. I laid Lena Sipp's 2017 tax return flat on the table. The ink smudged from years in a folder. $27,600 in music income that year. My name, not his. Next, I slid forward the mastering invoice, the yellow sticky flag marking the due date. $2,800 owed. Same track, same timeline. Finally, the foreclosure notice. And here sips the reality. $38,500 due January 10th. While my son told the world I was just an oil-stained mechanic, my name was paying bills he collected applause for. The room hushed, every microphone angling closer. And then Miss Walsh dropped the hammer. She projected Evan Sipp's November 3rd email onto the library Sipp's pull-down screen. If we claim ownership outright, we keep the narrative clean. The old man won't fight. Gasps rippled through the rows. Reporters exchanged looks, fingers flying across keyboards. One muttered that Sipp's damning. Evan, sitting stiff in the back row, shifted in his seat, jaw tight. Sponsors had sent representatives too, 3 in press suits, notebooks closed but eyes sharp. One cleared his throat. Our contracts include morality clauses. Fraudulent authorship is material breach. Miss Walsh didn't miss a beat. Then you know what must happen. Credits corrected. Royalties repaid. Or we file suit, and discovery makes every shred of this public. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was loaded, the kind of silence that means reputations are collapsing in real time. Marco pressed play on the demo through a small speaker. My voice filled the sterile room, hoarse, imperfect, but undeniable. The faucet dripped between phrases, each plink a metronome of memory. When it ended, no one laughed. No one doubted. Even the reporters who came expecting drama now wore expressions of something closer to pity for Tyler, not me. Evan stood, tried to interrupt. But one of the sponsor reps cut him off. You still be hearing from compliance. That single line sealed it. The press conference dissolved into chaos, flashes, shouted questions, a swarm of recorders shoved toward me. But all I heard was the echo of that faucet drip and the steady thump of my own heart. For the first time in decades, I wasn't erased. I wasn't anonymous. I was Benjamin Cole, and the truth finally had a microphone. December 6th began with the smell of burnt toast and a phone lit up like a slot machine. I hadn't slept much after the library showdown. Adrenaline kept replaying the faucet drip in my head. When I finally rolled out of bed, the notifications were stacked so high my thumb cramped just trying to scroll. The first headline I saw wasn't ecstatic, cruel, or sensational. It was plain, almost clinical. As U.S. in Ledigur. Father presents evidence of course authorship, sponsors review, influencer deals. No fireworks, no gossip, just the word I'd been chasing for years. Evidence. By noon, the national blogs had folded it into their feeds. Track watch, kitchen tap, demo matches, viral hook, credits under scrutiny. Creator wire. Morality clauses invoked after library proof session. Sound rights weekly. Private demo, public reckoning, when ghosts ask for credit. Each summary quoted something real. Lena's tax return line item, Marco's affidavit, the November 3rd email with Evan's old man won't fight. The faucet clip had turned into shorthand. Some outlets embedded it. Others described the audio like it was the sound of a lock finally turning. I poured coffee that tasted like the inside of a radiator and sat at the kitchen table where the notebook lay under its new glass dome. The house felt different. Less like a bunker, more like a room someone could live in again. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. Like a man standing on a floor that had finally stopped tilting. At 1:38 p.m. A sneaker company posted a 4-sentence statement. We have paused Q4 placements pending credit confirmation on certain catalog titles. The energy drink followed with something drier. We are reviewing the matter under Standard Morals Clause procedures. The streamer said they were assessing chain of title. None mentioned Tyler by name. None had to. Evan went on offense. He gave a short phone interview to a mid-tier music blog that afternoon, calling me a disgruntled parent with a fantasy of relevance, insisting our contracts are airtight, and suggesting my demo was fabricated. The reporter included Miss Walsh's 2-word response. Discovery awaits. I brewed a second pot of coffee and took a slow walk around the block. Mrs. Diaz waved from her porch, holding up a newspaper like a flag. Proof has a sound, she called. I nodded and tapped my ear, still ringing. When I got back, a DM sat at the top of my inbox from a journalist in New York. Off the record, 3 brands quietly freezing spends. One rescinded a holiday bonus. Be careful, someone's going to push back hard. I typed thank you and resisted the urge to ask who lost the bonus. When guardrails go up, someone always swerves. By evening, Tyler went live. Not to apologize, to smear. He looked tired, like a kid who tried to stay awake through a storm and ended up fearing the thunder. Still, he came out swinging. This is out of proportion, he said, a forced grin pulling at his mouth. My dad's trying to rewrite history. He's been jealous since 02. He waved a printout as if it were a shield. You want receipts? Here are contracts. He didn't hold them close enough to the camera for anyone to read. He took aim at Marco next. Producers switch sides when the wind changes. He rolled his eyes at Mrs. Diaz's name. A neighbor? That's your source? He never mentioned the email. He never played the demo. The chat wasn't next on his side anymore. Faucets, waveforms, links to the library press clip. His own audience stacked the evidence against him. Where sips your chain of title, someone wrote. Another why ban your dad if he sips the line. Then a flood, play the kitchen tap. His jaw tightened. He killed the stream after 13 minutes. I didn't celebrate. I recorded at 9:06 p.m. I propped my phone on the same stack of paperbacks and pressed record. I've been accused of fabrication, I said, keeping my voice even. I held up the spiral notebook without the dome this time. Ink sees the day it was written. You can pretend you don't recognize a melody. You can't pretend water stains don't dry the way they do. I set the notebook down gently. I don't want anyone's life ruined. I want a line corrected. I want my name back. I looked straight into the lens the way Tyler always had when he was a kid asking for permission to stay up late. If I wanted clout, I'd have posted this in 2018. I wanted peace. But peace without truth is just quiet theft. I uploaded it and turned my phone face down. The next 3 days were a cold coffee blur. December 7th, 8th, reporters called. I said the same line to each of them. I'm not here for vengeance. I'm here for a correction. Some believed me, some wanted a bigger flame. A radio host asked if I hated my son. No, I said. I hate the part of him that learned he could win by erasing people. Marco sent a photo of an SM58 microphone sitting in a gift bag. Haven't given it yet. Thought you might need it soon. I stared at it for a long time. I used to think microphones were weapons. Now they look like mirrors. On the 8th, Miss Walsh forwarded an email string among sponsor compliance teams, names redacted, timestamps intact. The line that mattered was short: pending correction of credit and retroactive remuneration, resume Q1 placements. It wasn't a promise, it was a map. Lena came over that night with pie from Magnolia Cafe. We ate it standing up at the counter like we used to after Tyler went to bed. You know, she said between bites, truth doesn't make you richer, but it makes your money cleaner. She nudged the dome with her knuckle. Makes the air cleaner, too. I thought of the foreclosure notice tacked over my workbench. 38,500 due January 10th. It still felt like a cliff, but the ground under my feet wasn't crumbling anymore. It was firming. Tyler posted a story on the 9th. No voice, just a black screen with white text. I'm done being bullied. A few hours later, he deleted it. People screenshot everything. Screenshots don't delete. That night, a small thing happened that felt bigger than headlines. The Austin Ledger updated their piece and changed a phrase from alleges authorship to present's documentation of authorship. Same fact pattern, different verb. Allegation had turned into documentation in a newsroom sentence. That's how justice moves in the world. 2 words at a time. Before bed, I walked out to the garage and turned the new deadbolt just to hear the thunk. The camera's blue light blinked. I set the ASCAP card back on the nightstand and tried to measure the space between justice and punishment, between correction and destruction. The space was thinner than paper. I whispered a promise to the dark. I said, I'm still a father. Tomorrow I will be one in public too. I didn't know exactly how Act 9 would play out, but I could feel the pressure rebuilding in the pipes. The world had heard the faucet. Sooner or later, someone was going to turn the valve. December 12th, a Tuesday. Austin, air thin and gray, the kind of winter morning that makes sound carry farther. I was in the garage early, hands wrapped around a mug that smelled like burnt almonds. The foreclosure notice still hung above the workbench. $38,500 due January 10th. Every time I looked at it, the number felt less like a threat and more like a finish line I could actually reach. At 10:13 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. He's going live at noon. You should watch. No signature. I didn't need one. I wiped my hands on a shop rag and opened the laptop. The thumbnail showed Tyler seated against a white wall, no neon sign, no LED glow, just a ring light reflecting 2 pale circles in his eyes. The title was defensive, clearing the air one last time. Comments stacked up before he even spoke. Faucets, waveforms, the library clip, Marco's affidavit screenshot, Lena's spreadsheet with the $96,300 tally. Proof had become shorthand. People used it like punctuation. At 12:01, he leaned toward the mic. This is getting blown out of proportion, he said. Voice too casual. People want to cancel me over a chorus. He forced a laugh that fell flat. I mean, are we serious? He held up a folder and kept it at arm's length so the camera couldn't catch the contents. Contracts, he said. This is what matters. He tapped it with his finger like he was knocking on a door no one would open. The chat was merciless but not cruel, clinical like an audit. Chain of title? Where's the date? Play your stems. Why did sponsors freeze? Why did you ban him? Where's the email, Evan? He pressed his lips together. Look, I'm not obligated to. He stopped, looking off camera to his right. The lens caught the shift, some private instruction, a cue he didn't like. A new box appeared on screen, a live guest window, Miss Walsh. No fanfare, no introduction, just her steady voice and a document held close enough for every pixel to matter. For the record, she said, this is the ASCAP registration dated March 12, 2017, naming Benjamin Cole as writer of the chorus in question. She didn't say your father. She said Benjamin Cole. I respected that. She wasn't here to humiliate a son. She was here to correct a line. Tyler Sett's face tightened. That doesn't mean... She interrupted with lawyer tenderness. It means authorship credits. Retroactive royalties. You know the rest. He swallowed. anger and fear wrestling under his skin. He tried to pivot to me. He kept making a whole personality out of being wronged. I leaned forward in my chair until the springs squeaked. I could have typed something in the chat, a line that would score 1,000 digital points. I didn't. I let silence work for me the way it had in Miss Walsh's office. Silence can be a mirror. It can make a person study the shape of their own lie. The comments didn't relent. Play the kitchen tap, admit the chorus, correct the credit. The word credit repeated until it looked like a texture. He ran a hand over his hair, fingers trembling. Okay, he said, fake light that sets say he hummed something once. The chat erupted. Not with insults this time, but with links. The faucet clip, slowed waveforms, side-by-side comparisons. A producer I didn't know dropped a time-stamped analysis, melodic contour identical, prosody identical. This is authorship. The thread got pinned by the platform, not by Tyler. He glared off camera again. Off to the side, a hand slid into frame and placed the printed ASCAP page on his desk. Then a second sheet, Marco's affidavit. He didn't touch either. Miss Walsh's voice returned, low. You have a choice, Tyler. Correct credit and move forward, or fight the truth and shrink. He stared at the papers as if they were dangerous animals. The ring light hummed. His mic picked up the thin rattle in his breath. This doesn't mean he stopped. The words fled. A full 5 seconds passed. It felt like 1,000 miles. He looked straight into the lens. His eyes weren't a superstar's eyes anymore. They were my son's eyes when he was 8, and had broken a neighbor's window with a baseball and couldn't carry the lie any farther. My dad wrote the chorus, he said. Each syllable sanded down by reluctance. Silence. In a live stream, silence is a cathedral. It holds everything you've been avoiding. He nodded once, small and stiff. I said, I'm sorry, Dad. The apology was not clean or eloquent. It didn't need to be. It was the truth. Wearing muddy shoes, walking across a white rug. It left a mark you couldn't pretend you didn't see. The chat flooded with faucets, hearts, and a word I didn't expect to read. Respect. He didn't look at the camera after that. He looked down somewhere to the left of his keyboard, where the papers lay. We'll fix the credits, he said. Almost to himself. We'll handle the royalties. He winced at the last word, like it had sharp corners. And I'm ending contracts. He didn't say Evan's name. He didn't need to. The comment section said it for him. Drop Evan. Find better counsel. Fix your house. The stream ended not with a sign-off, but with a click. The kind you hear when someone decides they can't survive another second of being seen. I sat back in my chair. The garage felt larger. Even the buzzing fluorescent sounded softer, like it had finally stabilized. A text arrived. From Lena it happened. Then another from Marco, a photo of his calendar with sends to Ben scribbled across Friday. After that, a short message from Miss Walsh, will confirm in writing. Expect draft terms by Thursday. Proud of you for staying silent when it counted. I closed the laptop and listened to the garage breathe. Wind buffeted the roll-up door. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck hissed to a stop. Ordinary sounds, the kind you miss when you've been living under the siren of somebody else's fame. I wanted to be magnanimous. I wanted to be furious. I settled on honest. I opened the Notes app on my phone and wrote one line for the closing video I knew I'd record later. Justice is a correction, not a demolition. Before dinner, I walked next door and knocked on Mrs. Diaz-Sepp's door. She opened it with a smile big enough to share. I heard, she said, tapping her phone. Sounded like a confession to me. It was, I said. Thank you for remembering the night of the wrist cast, for hearing the humming. She patted my forearm. Proof has a sound. When I went back inside, the house smelled like onions and butter. I cooked for the first time in weeks eggs and toast. A small meal that tasted like a truce with my own life. I ate standing at the counter, the glass dome catching a line of afternoon sun, laying a bright arc across the spiral notebook like a benediction. The apology didn't fix everything. It didn't rewind the years or pay the mortgage or remove my name from the foreclosure notice. But it moved the world an inch closer to true. Sometimes that's all justice is, an inch you can finally stand on. I rinsed my plate, turned off the kitchen light, and let the room go quiet. Silence again, but not the kind that erases, the kind that honors what's finally been said. Tomorrow would be paperwork, wires, amended credits, and a call about Evan. Tonight it was enough to breathe in a house that felt like mine. December 15th, 3 days after Tyler's livestream apology, I sat in the garage with the door rolled halfway open. Cold air drifted in, carrying the smell of cedar smoke from a neighbor's chimney. My tools were lined in perfect rows, the way I used to line up lyrics in notebooks, hoping order might keep the chaos at bay. On the workbench sat the settlement letter from Miss Walsh. The bold heading read, "Corrected credits and retroactive royalties." Below it, two attachments, a cleared ASCAP update naming Benjamin Cole as co-writer, and a scanned agreement noting $62,740 in back royalties payable within 30 days. It wasn't millions, but it was truth with a dollar sign, and that was enough. I filmed my next video right there in the garage, surrounded by socket wrenches and the faint smell of gasoline. I didn't want glamour, I wanted honesty. The camera caught me from the shoulders up, oil-stained shirt collar and all. "My name is Benjamin Cole," I began, voice steadier than I expected. "For years I thought silence was the price of peace. I thought if I let my son build on my words I seemed to be a good father. But silence isn't peace. It seems just unpaid rent someone else collects." I held up the ASCAP registration, the ink still sharp under the office scanner. "This says what I have known since 2017. The chorus is mine." I set it down, then lifted the settlement letter, my name printed clean at the bottom. "This says the industry knows it now too." I leaned closer to the camera. "The mortgage is cleared, the foreclosure is gone. My house is my house again." I tapped the notice still tacked to the wall, now stamped paid in full across the middle. I paused, swallowing hard. My voice didn't set crack, but it trembled at the edges. "I set 'em not here to celebrate a win. I set 'em here to confess the cost of my silence. By letting Tyler take without correction, I taught him that erasure is easier than honesty. That lesson nearly destroyed both of us." I looked past the lens, imagining every stranger listening in their cars, kitchens, earbuds at the gym. "If you take anything from this story, let it be this: truth is like a bill. Ignore it long enough, and the interest will eat your life." I closed with the line in Dutch written in my notes app that night after the apology. "You didn't set lose me. You gave me away. And today I took myself back." When I uploaded the video, I didn't watch the view count climb. I brewed coffee, sat in the recliner, and listened to the garage creak as the wind pressed against the half-open door. For once, I didn't feel erased by silence. I felt accompanied by it. 2 hours later, Marco dropped by with the SM58 microphone he sent promised. He set it on the workbench with a grin. "If they said they're gonna hear you, might as well sound clean." I laughed for the first time in weeks. The kind of laugh that doesn't echo, it lands and stays. That night, Lena brought dinner in foil pans from Magnolia Cafe. She poured 2 coffees into mismatched mugs and raised hers in a toast. To correction, not demolition. We ate in comfortable quiet, the dome over the spiral notebook catching the reflection of the blue camera light. Every time I glanced at it, I didn't just see proof. I saw a chorus resolved, a harmony restored. For the first time since Tyler banned me from his chat, I believed the story wasn't ending in destruction. It was resolving, like a song finally finding its last note. Late December, Austin, air sharp with cold, the kind that makes your breath visible. Life had slowed, not because the world stopped talking, but because I finally didn't need to chase every sound. The dust had settled. On December 20th, the audit wrapped. Miss Walsh called me from her office. Voice clipped but calm. Confirmed $62,740 in back royalties. Transfer scheduled. You shall see it before the new year. I wrote the number down on a sticky note and pressed it to the garage wall beside the mortgage notice stamped P8 in full. One wall carried the proof of what was stolen. The other now carried the proof of what was returned. The first thing I bought wasn't a car or a vacation. It was a roof repair. I watched the contractors climb ladders, boots thumping against shingles that had leaked for years. Water had stained my ceiling so long I thought decay was permanent. Seeing new tar laid down, nails hammered in neat lines, felt like justice, loud, methodical, undeniable. Tyler made headlines again that week, not for music but for management. Influencer fires manager after authorship scandal. Evan Hart's name trailed every article like a ghost finally cornered. Tyler's face in the photos looked smaller. No neon behind him, just gray walls and an expression I couldn't read. Marco showed up at the garage 2 days later with a grin and a gift. He handed me the SM58 microphone, now wired into a little portable recorder. "For when you're ready to sing again?" he said. I laughed. "I think the world Seps had enough of my faucet demos." He shook his head. "Proof has a sound, Ben. Don't sit, let it go quiet again." On December 23rd, Mrs. Diaz came by with a plate of tamales wrapped in foil. She set them on the counter and pointed to the dome over my spiral notebook. "That belongs in a museum," she joked. Then she tapped the glass gently. "But this is better. Proof where you can see it every day." I cut into one tamale, steam curling into the cold garage air. "Funny how neighbors hear more than families sometimes," I said. She smiled, not unkindly. Christmas Eve. Lena invited me to Magnolia Cafe for pie. We sat at our old corner booth, the same one where we used to argue about bills and music contracts years ago. This time there was no fight. Just coffee, sugar, and relief. "You did it," she said, her fork pushing through a pecan slice. I shook my head. "No, we did. You kept the papers." Marco risked his career. Mrs. Diaz remembered the night. Miss Walsh wielded the law like a scalpel. Alone. I slept still beyond that couch in the garage, listening to the bulb buzz. She lifted her mug, to not being alone. The clink of ceramic was soft, but it echoed. For the first time in years, ordinary life returned. I swept the garage without feeling like I was burying myself in dust. I tightened bolts without wondering if anyone knew I used to write songs. Silence in the house felt different now. Not a void, but a peace. One night I sat in the recliner, microphone in hand, and hummed the chorus again. The faucet wasn't dripping, but the rhythm lived inside me. Proof doesn't fade just because the world takes its time catching up. As December ticked toward its last week, I realized revenge hadn't destroyed my family. It had corrected it, even if the correction came with cracks. Tyler hadn't called, not directly, but he hadn't denied me since. And in his silence, I heard something new. Not erasure, recognition. New Year's week in Austin always smells like cold air and leftover fireworks. The neighborhood kids ran down the block with sparklers shaped like question marks, and the sky wore the faint haze of smoke that turns every porch light into a halo. I stood in my garage with the door cracked open, coffee in one hand, the SM58 microphone in the other. The roof, newly sealed, didn't creak when the wind pressed. It held. I liked that sound. Holding. The email arrived on December 29th at 8:42 a.m. Subject line neat as a ledger. Subject compilation opportunity. Proof. The body was short and careful, the way real interest always is. "Mr. Cole, we run an indie imprint that curates archival demos with notable provenance. We heard your kitchen tap clip and watched the library session. We'd like to license the original demo for a compilation titled Proof, a project about the moment evidence becomes sound. We can offer $3,000 for a non-exclusive license. You retain all rights. If interested, we can wire by January 3rd. I read it twice, then once more out loud, just to feel the words leave my mouth. License. Retain all rights. The world had turned an inch at a time, and here it was, the inch becoming a mile. I forwarded it to Miss Walsh and to Lena with a one-line question, saying, Miss Walsh replied in 8 minutes. Yes. Clean terms. I'll send a simple writer credit language, no artwork changes, no syncs without new permission. Lena wrote back with a gif of someone exhaling. Then she texted, You earned this the honest way, no neon, no knife fights, just documents and patience. I wrote the label Deal then. Then I added a sentence I would too been too shy to add a month earlier. Please credit Kitchen Tap Demo March 12, 2017. Benjamin Cole, writer-performer. They answered in under a minute. Done. Wire on January 3rd? Happy New Year, Mr. Cole. I set the phone down on the bench next to the glass dome and watched the winter light touch the spiral notebook. Water had once stained that page into a bruise. Now the stain looked like an autograph. The irony was quiet, which made it elegant. For years I'd been a ghost in my own story. Then the proof made a soundtrack. On December 30th, I walked the long aisle of a hardware store for no reason except that I wanted to. The world looked ordinary again. Men comparing drill bits, a kid trying on work gloves, the clerk scanning duct tape with the tired tenderness of a night nurse. No one recognized me, and I didn't resent it. Fame had never been my problem. Credit was. When I came home, a package sat on my porch. No return address, just a white box and a handwritten note inside. For the new year, in Marco's handwriting. Beneath the tissue paper lay a tidy coil of XLR cable and a small audio interface no bigger than a cigarette pack, taped to a card that read, "Proof deserves clarity." I plugged everything in. The interface lights came up like a tiny runway. I held the SM58 in my palm and hummed the chorus, not to claim it again, but to thank it. The faucet wasn't dripping. It didn't need to. The rhythm lives inside you after long enough. Later that afternoon, I checked Tyler's socials with the detached curiosity of a man reading the weather. No neon sign. A plain gray backdrop. The same white wall from the apology. He'd posted a clip, 30 seconds of him in a studio, bare shelves behind him, no ad reads, no sponsorship stings. The caption was 2 sentences. Credits updated. I'll do better. People said it was PR. Maybe it was. But the correction held, and that mattered more than the motive. That night I cooked lentils and garlic in a cast iron pan, the house filling with a smell that felt like work done right. I ate at the counter with the dome off the notebook for once. Proof doesn't need glass when it carries its own air. New Year's Eve, 11:54 p.m., the neighborhood counted down 7 minutes early because the kids misread the clock and nobody corrected them. I stood on the porch in a coat too thin for pride and watched sparklers carve slow silver signatures in the dark. Diaz waved from her steps, a blanket around her shoulders. "Got any resolutions, Mr. Benjamin?" "Only one," I said. "Credit what sep's true as soon as you know it." She nodded like I'd said something with weight. Maybe I had. The older I get, the more I think wisdom is just memory that learned its manners. On January 2nd, Miss Walsh called with the voice of someone who woke up and ran 5 miles because that's who she is. Funds confirmed for royalt. She stopped herself. For your royalties. And the label wire will hit tomorrow. I added a rider clause. No AI alterations to the demo without your say-so. AI? I said, laughing. The faucet is analog, Miss Walsh. Then let it stay that way, she said. Also, Evan Settis Counsel floated a soft settlement on his personal exposure. I recommend we accept the apology as sufficient and decline any hush consideration. Why? I asked, though I knew. Because truth doesn't need a receipt marked confidential, she said. Let him keep his quiet. We tell, keep the record. I imagined a table somewhere, his name on a folder, somebody making a math out of disgrace. Okay, I said. We still keep the record. January 3rd, 9:12 a.m. I refreshed my bank app and saw the label wire land $3,000 neat and square. It didn't look big next to the mortgage payoff line item, but it felt different. That money wasn't a correction. It was an invitation. I filmed one last video. Not a confrontation, not a confession, a benediction. I sat in the garage with the door open wide enough to let in morning. The mic was on, but I didn't sing. I spoke. New year, I said. Same address. Same tools. Same name. 3 things to thank: a neighbor who listened, a producer who signed his name when it mattered, and a lawyer who treats facts like instruments. 1 thing to confess: I waited too long to tell the truth. I held the ASCAP card up to the lens and slid it back into my wallet behind my driver's license. Right where it belongs, I said, beside the name that pays the bills and the name that writes the songs. I angled the camera at the notebook, now lying open to the page with the chorus. A label called the demo proof. I guess that's just what it always was. Not a weapon, not a wound, a map. I closed the notebook gently. The way you lower a lid on a piano you still plan to play. I said I'm not here to lecture my son. He said he'll write the rest of his story with or without me. But for the record, for anyone who needs to hear it, silence is not humility. It's settling someone else files on your life. I ended the video there. A short one, no music, no edits, no CTA. I uploaded it and took a long walk. On the trail by the river, runners passed me with faces set in that private bargain you make with your body in winter. Keep going and I'll keep warm. A cyclist slowed, then sped up again, and I thought about velocity, how 10,000 small pushes become momentum, how one confession becomes a career repaired at the seams. When I got home, I found a quiet notification that made me sit down before I read it twice. Tidy Live reposted. Kitchen Tap Demo, March 12, 2017, Benjamin Cole, writer-performer. No caption, just the repost and the credit line, as if the truth were a shy guest finally invited to sit at a loud table. The comments were kinder than I expected. Respect, this is how you fix it. Let the man cook. My favorite was a line from someone with a username I'll never remember. Proof ages well. I smiled into the empty room. Maybe that's the final irony. Proof mends what applause can't reach. In the afternoon, I drove to the East 7th Taqueria where I'd signed my ASCAP in 2017. The waitress behind the counter was new. The tables were the same, scarred with names and hearts and the algebra of old loves. I ate slowly, taste cinnamon in the coffee, lime on the salsa, grease on the tortilla that left a fingerprint on the napkin. When I left, I placed a tip under the salt shaker and, on a scrap of receipt, wrote a line I wish someone had written to me 20 years ago. Keep your own name close. Back home, I slid the deadbolt and, out of habit, checked the blue light on the garage camera. The dome wasn't on the notebook. It didn't need armor anymore. I tucked the escape card behind my license and set the storage key. See Knees 17, that small brass truth, on a hook above the bench. I turned off the garage light. The dark didn't feel like absence. It felt like a stage waiting for the next song. Maybe I'll write again. Maybe I'll just teach. Maybe I'll fix cars and hum hooks the faucet could never keep time for. Whatever I do, I'll do it under my own name. And if the question comes, was the revenge worth it? I'll answer the same way every time. Revenge wasn't the point. Credit was. Justice is just what happens when proof gets a hearing. The calendar in the garage hangs open to January, crisp and unused. No red circles. No foreclosure digits looming like weather. Only blank squares waiting for the kind of days that don't need an audience. I locked the deadbolt, pocketed the keys, and said the last line out loud. Not for the camera, but for myself. You didn't lose me, you gave me away. Today and every day after, I take myself back.